Hey, everybody, this is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be out tonight because we have a great show planned for you guys. But before we get started, the normal little formalities here. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast on TikTok and Instagram, make sure you go out, subscribe to TikTok and Instagram. Both the Dope Ass Dude podcast. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. Go right now, and while you out there right now clicking on subscribe, make sure you click on that notification bell so you can be notified anytime new file is uploaded. And then while you're there, just go ahead and hit that like button before you get on out of here. And just remember that every Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, there is a new podcast with new and exciting guests. And tonight is not any short of that. Tonight we have this guy named Chris Edwards, and he is this phenomenal being. I mean, he's just amazing. I have followed him for a couple of years now on Instagram, and he is like one of the best dressed men I know. And then he just, overall, is an amazing person. I was able to be a guest on his podcast a few weeks ago on Instagram Conversations, Friday Conversations with Christopher Edwards. So if you're not following him on Instagram, please go and follow him on Instagram, and you can check out the conversations every Friday at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. So 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I think they normally go about 30 minutes, but it is a like full packed 30 minutes of great and amazing conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get Chris out here. We're not going to wait any longer, and we're going to get him out here. What's going on, Christopher?
What's up, John? How are you?
I am amazing, dude. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am 47. As you said, my name is Chris Edwards, and I go by constantly underscore changing for me on Instagram and all my social medias. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. I do quite a few different things. I'm a photographer. I'm a brand ambassador for a few brands, and then also I am a social media coordinator and manager for a few brands as well. So I kind of keep myself busy to doing a few things.
So with all of that, so how do you find time to balance all of that? I mean, because like you say, you do your photography, and then you have your own talk show podcast on Fridays and so forth. And with that comes a lot of work. People don't get that. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
find guests,
yeah.
topics, everything. So how do you find time and balance to do all of that? And then how do you get your creativity? How do you stay inspired?
All right, so let's break it down. First, honestly, I live by a calendar. I schedule everything, and I literally, if it's not on my calendar, it does not exist. Um, and what I try to do is kind of break up my week a little bit. Mondays are like my open day where I kind of leave it open for things to kind of just happen. And Monday tends to end up being a little bit full. I have like weekly conversations with certain people, so I do a live with another photographer on Thursdays and Fridays. His name is Ron Lewis. And we typically catch up every Monday morning, just the two of us, just to talk for about an hour, just to see, how the week went, what we're expecting to do this week. And we basically just hold each other accountable. And in addition to that, I have other just like business meetings that I take. And then I try to kind of prepare myself for the rest of the week. And, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the same thing. I do a lot of prep work for the Friday show and also for the Thursday night show on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then Thursday, I hit the ground running. Thursdays are really a busy day. It's about the two shows, 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've got the show with Ron Lewis. And then Thursday nights, I have the show with my two friends, the conference call. And then on Friday, it's the same thing, 11:15 to 12 o'clock. And then 12:30 to 1, or sometimes we go a little bit long. But then, it's a long week. It's a long day. And even when the show is finished, that does not mean the day is done, because what I what I do is I prep for the following week. You know, so it's a constant grind. And then on the weekends, I'm still working. I'm editing. I'm photographing. I'm traveling. So it's a lot, but it's a lot of balance. And honestly, it's about having the items on the calendar.
Wow. 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 So you do everything. Like, so you do all of your editing, you do all of that stuff.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I source my clothes. I style myself. Let me just kind of pull back a little bit. I style myself, but my husband gets final approval on the looks. If he doesn't approve of it, it doesn't get photographed.
Wow, wow. So, okay, because I mean, again, like I said in the beginning, you are this exceptional dresser. So, like, how do you find somebody, if you did have a stylist, how would you find somebody that meets your standards? Because, like, you are like amazing by yourself. So, like, is that hard to find somebody that meets what you need them to do?
No, you know what? I'm really open when it comes to that. I believe that everyone has their own style. And I also don't push what I like on other people. I allow them to just, find what it is that they love. Um, Now in regards to like, especially when I'm photographing other people, we come together collaboratively and work on the looks, so that when people show up for the day of their shoot, there's no surprise. I already know what I'm shooting, from hair and makeup, to the clothes, to even like the lighting. I have it already set up in my mind how I want to do it. Of course, there are some changes along the way during a particular photo shoot, but it's already all planned out. There's never ever a surprise. I believe that in order to execute something, you really need to plan it out, and it's not something that happens over the course of just like a weekend or a week. A lot of times, it takes weeks to get to that point.
Wow, wow, wow. And I think like people do not understand all of the work that it takes just for 30 minutes. I mean, because like you just said, I mean, you described so much that goes into just a 30-minute process. And we think, oh, you just on there talking. No, you got to do
No,
content, you got to find guests. And then, like you say, you style your own self for your shows, and then the editing part starts after that. Wow, dude, that's amazing. Wow, wow, wow.
yeah,
So somebody said, wow, Chris is a busy man. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate that, Patricia. You know what? Listen, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to. You know what I mean? So here's the thing. I'm not. This is not something that was natural to me necessarily. I come from the world of architecture. I was an architect for over 20 something years. That's what I went to school for. I have a 5-year degree in it, and at the beginning of the pandemic, I got laid off like a lot of people, and I decided that I was done. I was done making money for other people. I was done working for someone else and not being completely fulfilled and satisfied. And I said, if I'm going to do this, this is the opportunity to do it now. Like, I think a lot of people saw the pandemic as a means to kind of start over again, to take a chance on themselves. And that's exactly what I did. You know, um, I'm not going to lie, it was scary. It still is scary to a certain degree because there's no guarantees for anything. Like, there's some months that you're doing this, it's like, okay, that income isn't coming in like I would love it to. You know what I mean? But I always have to remember that, um, I love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about it. I think I'm making a difference. And then also, I have someone here that supports me and says, you know what, go ahead and just do this. Because if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? I'm 47 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I took that leap of faith and said, I'm going to believe and trust in myself and do what I know I can do. And I've constantly proven myself, um, every day that I can do this. So I'm just going to keep doing it.
So did you have to like, so before you went and left your architectural job and you started doing your passion full time, did you give yourself like, you say, okay, well, I'm going to do this, kick it off in 6 months, or I'm going to kick it off in a year? Like from the time you decided that this is what I'm going to do, how long of a, how long was there before you actually did
The very next day.
it?
There literally was no, looking back. I got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, and I said, I'm not going back into that. Whenever this whole thing, because we were living in times of uncertainty. No one knew what was going on, when we were going to go back to work or what. So I said, I know I can do this. I've been working with some people, um, online, doing some things, getting some brand sponsorships and stuff like that. And I figured out a way to generate income from it. And I said, okay, yeah, it's not what I was making before. it was enough to sustain the bills and to, keep a roof over the house and food and, all the other stuff. I said, all right, I'm going to do this because I know eventually I will continue to build and be able to bring in that money and surpass what I was making before. Um, so it's a passion, it's a love of mine. And, like I said, I had to bet on myself and said, I'm just going to do this. There was no, all right, well, I have to get all this infrastructure and figure it out. No, it's like, let's figure it out. Just start doing it and just keep building on it until you get to where you need to get to, basically.
And I love how you said I had to bet on myself. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of times we don't want to bet on ourselves because we are just that voice inside of our head is telling us, oh, this is not going to work. You don't need
Yep.
to quit your job. And we stay on jobs and we stay in places. So just, for whatever reason, and we never ever bet on ourselves. And when you bet on yourself, you'll sure win, because even if it gets out there and it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to work out, at least you tried. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are afraid to just get out there and try.
No, you have to try. You have to believe in yourself and say. And the other thing too is there's no one there pushing you to say, all right, you got to get out of bed to go to work to go do this. For me, I work from home, so it's I get up. And the other thing too, I think keeping a routine is key. When I lived in Manhattan, when I lived in New York and worked in Manhattan, I had a routine. And just because I don't, you know, commute to work anymore does not mean I don't have a routine. I get up every morning around 5:30, 6 o'clock. I typically leave out the house like around between 6:30, 7 o'clock. I do a 5K every day, either a run or a walk. That can take me anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. I come back home, shower, have a cup of coffee or tea, and I get my day started. By 9 o'clock, I have certain things done that I need to have done, all right, to progress the rest of the day. And then I work basically throughout the day. There are days when I get up, when I leave out at 6 o'clock, 6:30, I'm not done working until about 11 o'clock that night. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a perfect example. Last week Monday was the exact scenario. I literally was on phone calls all day, between booking people for the show, setting up new projects, doing some lives, and then, literally getting my last live ended at like 10:30. And when you're done, when you're done with a show, that doesn't mean that you're done. You're done being on camera, but there's things you have to do to like either put the show up or to prep for the following day. So, it's a long day. No one's going to tell you, hey, you have to do this. You just know that has to get done. I don't have any employees. I am the photographer, I'm the booker, I'm the interviewer, I'm the editor, I'm the stylist. I'm the bookkeeper. I literally do everything. So what I have to do is just carve out different corners of my day to do certain things, and I do it every day or every week at the same time, just as a routine, just so I know that all right, this is the time of the day I have to do this.
Wow. Wow. And so for someone out there, because it's hard developing routines. It's hard developing routines, and especially when you're not working a full-time job. So you have the entire day to, set your own pace. And I think a lot of times we work by our own pace. But I love how you said you get up in the morning, you walk, you got this just set routine, regardless to what's going on. You're gonna be doing this. At certain times of the day. How beneficial have that been for you? Have you always been that way, or is this something that you developed once you know, went full time creative?
No, this is something that I've always done. I can say I started this type of routine right out of college, and that was over 20 something years ago. I used to bike to when I lived in Philadelphia. I used to bike to work. That was a 7.5 mile bike in and back. So I would, bike to work, work. I had, after work stuff that I would do, go home, you know, gym on top of that. And then when I moved to New York, it was the same thing. I would do a 5K every morning, and then I had an hour and a half commute, and I would walk another mile and a half cross town to my job. And on my lunch break, I would walk, wherever I need to go to, and then I walk a mile and a half back to the train station, and that's my day. So like When I was living in New York, I will say I was even a lot more active because, like, on an average day, I was running and walking between 12 miles a day, 12, 15 miles a day. I don't do
Wow.
it as much now, but this is something that is a routine of mine that I've had for many, many years. I find that it works for me. It motivates me and it keeps me on pace with the things that I need to do. When I don't do it, that's when I slack off. And then, of course, you have to have your down days. I try to take at least one day out of the week where I just like, okay, I'm not going to do everything. I'll still do my 5K. I might not do it in the morning, but I'm going to get it done at night. Even if it means it's me going to the gym and walking on the treadmill, I feel it's important for me. It helps me to feel better about myself as well.
Mhm. And I think setting goals daily, because I think, like I said, I think we all start out the new year and we say, oh, well, I want to do this year. And then by March, we've given up on those goals.
Yeah,
They're a thing of the past. So that's why I always say set new day expectations, goals, and expect yourself to complete those goals at the end of the day. And you feel so great when you can complete something in that day. So I love how you say if you don't do it in the morning, you will make sure you still do it at some point in the day. I love that.
yeah.
And Chris, I mean, we getting a little bit ahead of us, but this is amazing. So, because I wanted to talk about living limitless,
Hmm.
because, and that's exactly what you're doing. A lot of people, and they had a buddy on here, Serge and Saron. They recently started a podcast, and Serge, when he first started out, he is 47 and he thought he was too old to do a podcast. He was like, "Oh, I'm too old,"
Never too old.
never too old. So you are redefining that. I tell people that all the time, 40, 50, 60-year-old people, that we are redefining age now because we're doing things people may consider it late, but hey, we're just getting started and we're changing the world. So how did or did you even have those voices in your head? Because like I said, a lot of us, we do have those voices of defeat and we are telling ourselves, oh, you're too old to do that, or you missed your time, or you're not smart enough to do that. Did you have those voices in your head telling you that? And if you did, how did you defeat them?
Okay, so with living limitless, I can honestly say I did not have those voices. And I'm
That's a
going to tell
blessing.
you why. I'm going to tell you why. In my 20s, I, or even before that, like early teens, mid 20s, I wasn't as confident as a person as I am now. I think that I kind of lived in the cut a little bit and let life live around me versus me living in life. And then, I think, 20s are like what I call the stupid years, where you're just really exploring and finding out who the hell you are. And then, hit my 30s and I moved back to New York and I was working in Manhattan. I started to, I don't know, there was a level of confidence that came over me. And of course, I think a lot of things happen in your life that kind of lead you to say, hey, I need to change the way I'm living. I remember my father, he had some heart issues and had heart surgery. And it made me stop and say, you know what? All I do is work. I never take vacation. I never go anywhere. It's just about work, work, work. And then also, I think that's something that's inherited and inherent in us, especially coming from a Korean background. It's always about, work, pay the bills, do what you got to do. All those other things will come later on. And I wasn't living life. I was just living through life. Um,
Mm,
and I think, my 30s, I kind of like started to free myself a little bit and saying, all right, I started doing different things and traveling just a little bit, just getting a little bit of a taste. But I will say there was one pivotal moment that happened about almost 9 years ago. This August will be 9 years since my aunt passed away. She was diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, and we didn't know it at the time. We didn't actually know until literally about a month before, the process of her dying. And the family was very supportive. We understood why she didn't tell anyone. I mean, I think one of the person they knew, because she didn't want anyone to treat her differently, and she just wanted to live her life. And she had a little one. He was only 7 at the time when she passed. But my aunt lived an amazing life. Like, she traveled, she took her son everywhere. She wanted him to experience the world. And I realized that even though I was doing a lot of the different things, I wasn't really living, like harnessing what the world had to offer. And after she passed, I said to myself, if I was to die tomorrow, I'm not going to leave this earth saying that I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that. Those days are over. She died in August. Uh, in November for my birthday, I went to Florida on vacation by myself, and I said, you know what? I just want to do something different. And I remember getting a email. Typically, it would come up as spam. It was like one of those travel Asia type of emails, and the place they had listed was Thailand. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go. Out of literally, I got the email, and about the following week, I booked a ticket for 10 days to go to Thailand by myself. And I went, and I met up with like this tour group, and there were like different people from all over the world that just decided to do like this little group thing. Met a bunch of people from all over the world, made great friendships, and just visited another country. I mean, I've gone places, but never to say I'm going to go to the other side of the world by myself, not know anybody at all, and just had this adventure. And the moment I did that, it was no turning back. I realized right there and then that I wasn't living, and this is what living meant. And from that point on, I've been pretty much everywhere. I've been to China, I've been to Iceland, I've been to South America, I've been to Canada a couple of times, I've been to Europe. The only place I had not been to yet, basically, is Africa, and that is definitely on my radar. Um, but between that and then I started taking my photography more seriously. I started doing different things. I remember one of the first things, even before the Thailand trip. Uh, I always said I wanted to photograph New York City from a different vantage point. And I got this, there's this company called Fly On New York. It's right outside of New York City, but they fly over the city all the time. It's a helicopter doors off experience where you're tethered to a helicopter and you're able to basically sit on the outside of the helicopter and photograph the city. And I didn't tell anybody. The day of it, driving to the helipad, I called my cousin. I said, "Hey, look, I'm doing this thing. I'm only telling you because if something happens to me, at least someone knows what happened to me." But um, for me, it was like I don't know. There was a weight that was lifted, and then two, I felt like I was living my best life, and I was living limitless, as you say. And all those experiences that made me into who the person I am right now. And because of those things that I did, started to do 9 years ago after my aunt passed away, it has allowed me to not be fearful to do things,
Yeah.
to step out on faith and say, "Hey, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to work with other people, create these connections." And you can't do that if you're living in fear.
Yeah. Wow. And I think, because unlike you, I do, even still, I even struggle with those inner voices that will tell you, hey, this maybe is not a good ideal. But I'm kind of like you too in some regards. Those voices don't last too long because if an idea come to me today, I implement it tomorrow. So they don't have a long time to, process there. But
Hmm.
for some people, those voices do deter them, and we don't need our family to discourage us a lot of times because some of us, we discourage our own selves because we
Yeah.
see the mistakes and the failures of someone else. And then we automatically think, oh, well, they're smarter than me, or, they're a little bit more driven than me and it didn't work for them. So maybe it's not going to work for me. And I do think, when you face those type of things, it goes back to what Chris said earlier, bet on yourself.
Hmm.
Just jump out there. I'm not telling you to go quit your job tomorrow,
Yeah.
if you ain't got some savings to cover you a little bit, I'm not telling you to do all of that. But, if it is something that you are passionate about and that you want to try, you should at least, you owe it to yourself to try it. At
Yeah.
least try it. And if it don't work, just find a plan B.
Two
But
two things with that. I always say never underestimate yourself because you'd be surprised what you can actually do when you push yourself. And then also I believe in this. Um, you know, if you don't try something, you'll never know. And then also my thing is like for us, what we do as far as like going out and finding people and asking them to, hey, would you mind coming on my show and let's just have a conversation? My thing is, if you ask them and they say no, you're in the exact same position you were before you did. So you only have something to gain. You're never losing anything because you're at where you were before. You asking someone to, will you participate? Will you help? Will you do this and do that? You know, it's a win for you. If it doesn't happen, okay, no big deal. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I wish you the best. And I'm gonna continue to support you, and you move on to the next person. It's
Absolutely.
just that simple. Because listen, when I told you, I'm booked out basically until all of May. I'm starting to book now for June, and when I started this 18 weeks ago, I didn't think I would even be doing it. I was just like, oh my god, all right, I want to do this like weekly show. How am I going to get people to come on and have a conversation with me? I mean, who am I to have this conversation with, I mean, I have made some great connections over these last several years doing this, and I relied on those people that I initially really knew and had a relationship with. But then I knew that that was never going to be able to sustain itself because, you're going to get some no's, and then also, not everyone you really want to have on, their story isn't compelling enough to really generate a conversation with a half an hour. So, one of the things I started doing is, hey, this is someone I think that might be interesting. We don't really know each other, but we follow each other, or I don't really know the person, but I maybe know someone through them. I reached out to them, and I will say, 9 times out of 10, I get a yes. And when I get a no, it's not a big deal. Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to even have this brief conversation with you or exchange, and then I'll try again later because maybe they'll follow and they'll watch and see what it's really about. So a lot of times people don't want to invest in something like this because they don't know the history of it. And that's why when I do my pitch, because I have my little elevator pitch like you should have. I've got a script that's already written out. I copy and paste. Just change the name. Um, I always include at least two examples of a show, and I try to pick people that are kind of close to them that I've interviewed, just so they can see, the format of the show.
And you don't, the funny thing is, a lot of times when we are stepping out on faith and we're stepping out on our dreams and everything, we're looking for everybody to believe in us. Everybody is not going to believe in you. And you don't need everybody to believe in you. All you need is you to believe in
Mhm.
yourself. Failure is not an option.
Yep.
You jump out there and you say, hey, I'm going to make this work. And you get out there and you do it because everybody's not going to believe you. There's, like Chris said, we both have to find guests. There are going to be people that tell you no. Hey, that's just the way it go. And like he said, when they tell you no, you're still in the same place you were in right before you asked them. And you just go on to the next person and you just keep it moving, but do
Yeah.
not stop. Do not stop. Wow. Wow, Chris, that's really, really good, man. And then, so, okay, let's talk about this here brand ambassador, because that's
Okay.
something else we hear a lot on social media nowadays. So, first of all, I want you to tell us exactly what that is, and then tell us how you became a brand ambassador, because there are some people out here that are watching, they want to be a brand ambassador, but we get these little plugs in our DM. Hey, you can come, be a brand ambassador, and we'll give you a 10% discount on our product. Tell us what it is so people can know.
All right. So brand ambassador, it's kind of multifaceted, and to be honest with you, that's kind of how I got started. Someone dropped into my DMs. It was actually a hat company. So let me just kind of step back a little bit. Back in 2018, I started this constantly changing for me page. I was on Instagram. I've been on Instagram for a year since the inception of Instagram, but I was highlighting my travel and my cityscape and landscape photography. And in 2018, the beginning of 2018, I had, started working on myself. I lost some weight. Not that I was ever heavy to really begin with, but lost some weight. And I was just really feeling like my best self. And when you lose weight, of course, certain clothes just don't fit anymore. So you have to get a whole new wardrobe. And, I love to dress, and I've always wanted to get into fedoras. And I just didn't feel confident enough to pull it off. But I was like, I'm going to do this. I remember buying a couple fedoras from this company that was online. They were based out of Florida, and they reached out to me a couple of times in my DM, and I'm just like, okay, this is probably a scam. I just disregarded, didn't pay him any attention. and they kept like just DMing me like once a week. We'd love to partner with you. We'd love to send you some stuff. If you could just take some photographs and tag us in it, we'd appreciate it. So one day I was just sitting there, I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna reach back out to them, see what they were talking about. I did that. Had a conversation with one of the owners, and they said, they're trying to build their social media presence. They saw that I had tagged them in one of the hats that I bought of theirs, and they loved my look and how I styled it with. I believe I had like a suit on, and they just loved it. So I said, all right, I'm gonna try this. They sent me a box, and I took some photographs of it, sent it back to them, and that's how I pretty much got started. And then I Fly Hip Ageless, which is on Instagram, reached out to me. So we'd love to have you as one of our brand ambassadors for 2019. And I was still a little skeptical. I was like, I don't know. And then she was talking about this is the deadline. I missed the deadline. And then I started saying, you know what? To hell with this. I'm just going to just try whatever this thing is. And to be honest with you, from that moment on, that's kind of where I just kind of took off a little bit. I was featured on Fly Hip Ageless several times early in 2019. And once I got on there, I started seeing my numbers start to go up. So I was a brand ambassador for a hat company based out of Florida, a brand ambassador for Fly Hip Ageless, and they had a huge following. Then I started working with Scotch Porter. I worked with them for about several months. I was actually on the cover of one of their mailers that they put in every package when a customer buys something. I forget the name of it. It was like a little newsletter on how to prepare their stuff for their skincare lines and stuff like that. So that gave me some presence on social media as well. And then I started doing some stuff with other suit companies. And then, this kind of one thing led to another. But so to answer your question, how do you become a brand ambassador? A lot of times, what I would do also, if it wasn't someone reaching out to me, I would just reach out to them saying, hey, I love your products. I wear your stuff. I photograph your stuff. And that's the other thing too. If you want to be a brand ambassador for someone, you have to own their products. Okay. You can't just go on their page and say, hey, I want to be a brand ambassador for you. And then, all right, well, what do you know about our brand? If you can't show these companies that you understand their brand, they're not going to want to bring you on. You know, the other thing too is you're going to get a lot of people that reach out to you and say, "Hey, we'll give you 10%." You have to buy the stuff first, and then we'll give you 10% or whatever. A lot of times I stay clear. I stay clear of those. My belief is that you're a business. This is marketing for you. I'm not going to pay for that stuff. You send it to me, and then the other thing for me personally is that because I'm a photographer, I photograph myself. So it's not like I have to go out and pay for a photographer and wait for edits and that stuff. So how I market it is, hey, yes, I'll be a brand ambassador, but I'm also the photographer. So there's no other middle person. It's just me, product. I do all the work. I send it back. Um, but yeah, reach out to people, know the brand that you're going after, and just really sell it because don't want to work with you if you can't produce imagery that is reflective of what it is that they are doing and what they're trying to sell.
Wow, wow, wow. And you answered the question actually, because Tammy had just asked, what about brands that want you to be a brand ambassador but want you to pay for their products?
Yeah, me personally, I don't pay for them. Um, just because, like I said, they have a marketing budget. you know and a lot of times what they're doing what they're getting is they're getting free advertising off of you. And I'm a strong believer in, look, I bring value to your company. I'm helping to sell your products. The least you can do is gift me that because you're not losing money off of it.
Exactly.
That's it's an investment. You're making money off of my back. Yeah, you give me a coupon code, whatever, but you're still making money. All I got was like maybe one free thing off of it. And another thing too is I try to do partnerships with people where, it's an exchange of goods in a way. Currently right now I work basically with one suit company, Harold's Menswear. I've been with them for about 3 years doing stuff for them. And I try to bring them business. And I will say that I don't pay for any of the suits that they provide me. you know,
Oh, wow.
and because it's a partnership, and we've gotten other deals out of this stuff. And then also I work with Bruno Capello Headwear. I actually now manage that account. I manage their social media, so I do their Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff, and I manage their website as well. But how I started was I was their actual first brand ambassador for that company because they didn't have, excuse me, they didn't have a consumer facing business. They were wholesale primarily. I helped them to launch their website, and then to bring on brand ambassadors. I've had people. I don't know if you are familiar with Derek Blanks. I had him on as a brand
Yeah.
ambassador for that brand for about a year and a half.
Oh,
We've
wow.
got quite a few people on there right now. We've got about 20 brand ambassadors right now. Excuse me, but it all this is because I wasn't afraid to reach out to people to say, hey, I'd love to work with you. And working with them, understanding their product can lead you to other things as long as you're open to it. So I
Wow.
hope that answers the question.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was really, really good. So we have another question for you from Willie, a future podcaster. I think he shared with me he's going to start a podcast here soon. So congrats on that, Willie. The question is, what do you feel your podcast purpose is? What do you feel the purpose of your podcast is?
So that's a great question, Willie. Thanks. So my Friday show, Friday Conversations with Chris Edwards, is really about highlighting um, Black and Brown people. I feel as though there is a space that is neglected on social media. When it comes to our white counterparts, they can get online and amass a huge following and not really even have to do any work. And not to say that you don't have those individuals that do it, but the market is geared for them. You know, um, we, on the other hand, have to work 10 times as hard just to make inroads in that space. And what I try to do is shine a light on people such as yourself who have your podcast and, the whole dope ass dude experience basically to say, hey, look, there are people that look like us out here grinding, doing it. And it's one thing to have your own followers, right? But it's also another thing to introduce them to other groups of followers. So, for instance, you've got your own pot of people that follow you. I have my own pot of people that follow me, and they might not intermingle and mix. Excuse me. Having you on my IG live, now I've introduced them to you. They can go and follow you, and vice versa. Listen, after every show that I do, I realize that I gain new followers because of the fact that new people are introduced to me via the people that I have on, and the opposite is true of the other person. But one of the things that I get from, or the comments that I get from people that watch the shows is, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that this person, their whole journey and how they got to where they are. Because a lot of times we don't talk about the journey. You show up on the scene, you're doing what you're doing, especially if you're on Instagram. A lot of times people aren't really telling the full stories of how they got from point A to point B. People just
Exactly.
see the imagery, they see the reels, and the little interaction, but there's a whole story behind it. I I'll give you a perfect example. Like, people always ask me, well, how did you come up with the name Constantly Changing for me? There's a story behind that. Uh, Basically, when I came on there, this page was really about me just kind of documenting some of my looks for myself. It wasn't really about gaining brand ambassadorships and working with other groups. It was just about me having a way to catalog something and having it live online, and maybe giving a little bit of inspiration to people, and then also me seeing stuff from other people and trying it myself. But coming up with a name, I was just like, all right, I was going through a lot of changes, and I'm going to constantly keep going through changes. And I was just like, you know what? I'm constantly changing. I know that. But I'm not changing for anybody. I'm changing for myself. So I said, I'm constantly changing for me. And I knew that that is a name that could stand the test of time because of the fact that I was never going to be the same person I was the day before. I'm
Yeah.
not that same person from 2018. You
Yeah.
know, there's so much growth and enlightenment that has happened in my life in the last 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? So that's how my name came about. That's how the whole story of my page and existence on social media with the whole fashion, photography, and just social media experience came about. And using that name was so empowering to me because I knew that that's what was going to carry me all the way through.
Yeah. Wow. And got a comment from Don Birch. You mentioned him on your show. You watched the show he was on
Yeah,
here, the
I
OG Fit
remember.
Club. So good information on brand ambassadors and partnerships. Thanks, Don, for watching it, man. Thank you so much. But yeah, that is like, I love your name too, because we are constantly evolving, as people, and to be able to allow people to watch you on your journey. And as you evolve into greater, that is just like amazing. That's
Here,
just
I got a story for you. So, when I started this, Instagram's really just about imagery. It really wasn't about the reels in the beginning. So a lot of times, you're just putting up stuff. I'm doing curated images, stuff that I'm shooting all different places and stuff like that. And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I did a live with somebody. I think it was my first live really that I did with anybody. And one of the comments I got was like, they were like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you could speak." And it really hit me because I was just like, people don't realize. I mean, in my work profession, I was definitely, someone who had to speak all the time. I was always in front of CEOs and heads of departments for because I worked in healthcare in architecture. So I was always speaking to heads of departments and stuff like that. And that was just a common and constant thing for me. So that was something that I was just accustomed to. But because I was on this particular medium, it didn't really require it. So I didn't have to do it. And I made a promise to myself, I was going to be more in front of the camera, but not just in pictures, but doing video and stuff. And that's how actually this whole doing this show thing came about. I actually did it for one of the groups I was in previously, the Classic Men. I had interviewed all the guys that were in the group starting the beginning of January for about 15 weeks. And I did that. And then once I realized I could do that, once I decided to do this, I was like, oh, this is no brain. I've done it before.
yeah. Wow. And you definitely have to evolve. You have to change with the times. It's funny this year. So I used to blog and everything. So every year I used to write this blog on the 1st of January. And actually it would be the same blog I would just post every year, the same blog.
Okay.
And it would get, thousands of reads every year. So it was always called Waking Up on New Year's Alone. And I did one for waking up Christmas alone too. So this year I decided, opposed to writing a blog, I'm gonna do a reel where I'm like talking it, pretty much talking it. And but I did it like I was in my bed, I had my phone above me and I'm talking, but I'm pretty much saying the same blog that I did every year. But everybody was like, "Oh my God, John, you just seem so sad on the blog." I'm like, this is the same blog I've been doing for years. I'm just evolving with the
Yeah,
times. People want to see you
yeah,
talk it opposed to read
yeah,
it. But it's just amazing. But you do have to, you cannot just start something one year and then just think that 20 years you're going to be doing it the same way. No, you may
yeah,
do it this day and 3 months later, you have to shift it up a little bit. But then we have a
yeah.
question. We have another question for you, Chris. So, and this is coming from my friends at Straight Up Real Talk, Serge and Saron. Thank y'all for watching. Chris, you are bringing out everybody tonight. I'm just going to tell you that. So, Serge and Saron from Straight Up Real Talk would like to know, do you feel rushed having a 30-minute show? Is that enough
Okay.
time?
So here's the thing. I get this question a lot. I don't feel rushed. So technically, the show is 30 minutes, but it's blocked out for an hour. And the reason why I decided on 30 minutes, so first of all, it's at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is like lunchtime for most people on the East Coast, um, kind of Central Time. I know it's a little bit different on the West Coast, but it 30 minutes is like the perfect amount of time, especially when it comes to Instagram. People on Instagram are a little bit more finicky. They don't invest the time to sit down and watch something on a mobile device. You can get them for about 30 minutes. Once you start going over that 30-minute time, you start to lose people, which is okay. You know what I mean? I don't feel rushed. And I'm gonna tell you why I don't feel rushed. When I do the show, I don't come in with a set of questions to ask people. My prep for the show is typically on Wednesdays, I'll tend to go to the person's page, just do another deep dive. If they have links, if they have anything that needs to be that's published, that I can read, or any videos or anything on YouTube, whatever they have external links, I go through it and just get a better understanding of who they are. And then also a lot of times when I'm booking people, they have something that's going on, either at that moment or coming up. So that's something we can talk about. What I want people to get out of this conversation is, I want people to get to know who they are. It's not about me. I'm just there to kind of facilitate and move the conversation along. Every once in a while I might interject with something small or something I can relate to, but I really focus on letting the individuals just talk. 30 minutes can go by fast. And that's why if you're constantly interjecting and interrupting them, then their message is not going to come across. And what people are tuning into is to see them. They can see me any other time. They can see me, they see my photos, the stuff that I'm putting up, the reels and stuff like that. Um, but it's really about them. It's really about me highlighting these black and brown people that sometimes might not have the space to be able to talk about who they are and their journey on social media. So that's what it really is about. So 30 minutes isn't a rush. And then on top of it, as you know, if the conversation is really deep and I feel as though it needs to go a little long, I'll say to them, hey, look, if you have a little extra time, I don't mind going long. I think the longest I've done is about 55 minutes. And I think because it was warranted.
Wow, love that, love that. So let's go ahead and we're going to move on here. So branding and dynamic imagery, because that's something that you definitely do all the time. So for someone that's trying to brand themselves, they have a great ideal and they want to brand themselves. And branding is bigger than just coming up with a name, taking a couple of pictures. What suggestions do you have for people who want to brand themselves as something bigger than what they have in their head?
Yeah, I think where you need to start, first and foremost, is know who you are as an individual. Um, don't try to mold yourself into something that you think that you could possibly fit in, or what a company would want to see from you. Because what a lot of these companies are looking for are individuality, who you are as a person. And if people can see who you are as a person, they're more willing to work with you because they're not trying to recreate the wheel. They're going to give you whatever that they need, their products, and allow you to be yourself with their product to sell it. So, like for instance, when I first started this, I know who I was. I'm the type of person where I love to dress well. I love a good suit, but I also love to dress real casual. I could throw on a really nice pair of jeans, a button-down shirt, a vest, and a blazer, and a hat, and I'm gone. That's who I was, and that's still who I am to a certain degree. But I know that my I'm not gonna say my style has evolved because my style is is many different things. I'm very multifaceted, just like most people. I think a lot of times too, when they see you in one particular thing, they pigeonhole you and say, "Oh, this is what you do. This is who you are." No, I'm more than one thing. But know who you are, know what you bring to the table, and then the branding just kind of comes with it. Look at the things that you're doing. Look at the things. Well, look at who you are and say, "This is who I am, and this is what my brand is about." You know what I mean? And then I think the dynamic imagery will just come naturally. You know, it because you're just highlighting the brand, which is either yourself or something that you're producing. If that makes
Wow.
any sense.
Yeah. And I love how you said know who you are. And knowing who you are and evolving do not mean changing to please the
Absolutely.
trends. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost with their brands. You have to stay true to it. And that's all a part of the know who you are. Stay true to your brand. And when times change, if you need to evolve or tweak it a little bit to go with the times, then you tweak it. But don't lose yourself trying to get likes because we all know likes, you will get 1,000 likes on Tuesday, and on Wednesday you'll get 3 likes. So
Yeah.
you can't allow that to drive your value.
I think you said something really important there. I think a lot of people get so caught up in the, oh, well, my page isn't doing it well because no one's really liking my stuff. Listen, sometimes you're gonna hit a rough patch where like you feel as though no one just doesn't get your stuff, or because they pigeonholed you in their mind of what they think you should be when you're posting stuff. So I'll give you another example of that. when I started doing my page, it was really, for me, it was all about the fedoras and the suits. Like that's what people came to my page for. And then when I would start posting stuff that didn't have the fedora on, like I wouldn't get any love at all. It's like they would comment, "Well, where's the hat?" And I'm like, that I'm not gonna post a hat every single time. Like there are some things that I want to do without a hat. But here's the thing, though, that can be very discouraging, and it can force people to push themselves in that direction and say, "Well, I'm just gonna give the people what they want." It's not about that. It's about staying true to yourself. Like there are times where I don't wear the suit. Like last year, if you look at my page, I really started steering away from just doing the suit stuff because that's not who I am completely. And on top of it, I have to look at where I am in my life. Like right now, I'm not going into a corporate office where I have to be dressed in a suit every day. So that's not my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do I love to get dressed up when I go out? Absolutely. Will I throw on a suit when we go out to something? Absolutely. But that is not my life. I like to be relaxed. You know, wear different things. I can wear things that are trendy. I've always said you don't always have to follow trends. You don't. Some pieces that you have in your wardrobe definitely are pieces that sustain the test of time. A white button down shirt, classic. You'll always be wearing that. A nice black suit, you're always going to need that. A nice gray and blue suit, you're always going to need that. Um, but mix and match. You don't have to be doing the same thing. Sometimes I want to wear a fedora. I love wearing a hat. Sometimes I want to wear a baseball cap. Sometimes I just want to wear a knitted hat like you have on right now. It just it's just about how I feel in the moment, and I don't want to be subjected to how everyone perceives me to be.
Hmm.
I don't do that.
Yeah, yeah, you can, and I mean I tag all of my pictures with "Be your own vibe," and I mean you have to
That
figure out what your vibe is, and you create it and you own it, and don't care what people think about it, don't care what they say about it. Just be your own vibe and feel comfortable. I love how on your video you were using Beyonce's song "Cozy." You got to be
yes.
cozy in your own skin. Come on,
Yeah.
people. Yeah, don't worry about it. But we do have one final question for you, Chris. And
Okay.
this is from Don. And he says, have you ever had a guest from hell?
All right. For my Friday show, I have to say I have not had a guest from hell yet. Um, when I was doing the other show back last year, not that they were guests from hell, but everyone is different when it comes to being on camera. When you have someone that one is not a regular on camera like this, and they don't know how to answer questions and engage, it can be very difficult. I remember I interviewed someone, and it was a 30-minute format, just like my show. And, you know, I had a list of questions for them. And literally within the first 5 minutes, we burned through about 75% of those questions. And in my mind, I am fretting. I'm just like, okay, this is not going to last 30 minutes. We've already gone through 7 out of the 10 questions in like 5 minutes. And I've used every tactic that I know to try to, get more information. I'd ask a question. I'd be like, okay, elaborate on that a little bit. And I still get like the one word answer. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to die a slow death here. Luckily, there was enough people on the live that I said I opened up the question, and that kind of helped to sustain the conversation. It went a little bit short. I think we did like 25 minutes versus the 30. But luckily, I have not had a guest from hell, and I think part of that is also because I know who the people that I'm bringing on. I've either seen what they can do, I've seen them interact with online, and I don't pick people that are like highly controversial, that are just saying things to be saying things. I'm bringing people on that have purpose, um, that are interesting, someone that I would actually want to sit down and have a conversation with. Um, I feel as though I could probably be friends with them. And a lot of these people I've made friends with them. As you know, after the show, I always call every guest I speak with just to kind of have like a little debrief. It can be like 5 minutes to a half an hour, it doesn't matter. Just to see how they felt about the show, how it was for them, the experience. Um, and I think that's a good thing to have. So I know who I'm bringing on. So I never really anticipate having a guest from hell. Not to say it won't happen, never say never. but for the most part, I tend to I vet the people that I have on the show because I want it
Wow.
to be a good experience for myself, for them, and for everyone that's watching.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be times you have people on your show that just not talkers, and they may be talkers in real life, but they get on that camera and it's like, no, you're not. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what though? Everybody's different, but you just have to go with the flow. And I look at it like this: yes, there are people that are watching it, but I'm having a conversation with you. It's just you and I talking right now. That's how I look at it
Yeah. Yeah. And so Don, I mean, I don't call you Don. I got to see Don's name on the
as.
feed here. So Chris, tell us this here because we do have a couple of people out here. I know Don is actually getting ready to, he's gearing up to start his own podcast. And I know that's going to be amazing. So for future people who are wanting to become podcasters, what advice would you give them, to be successful? What advice would you give them?
Kind of something what I said before. I said, be yourself first and foremost. Take your time, and do the hard work. I, Listen, like we've said, this is not something where you just jump on and you just start asking questions and the show's over and it's done. There's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. Spend the time to build that like infrastructure in a way. You know, build up your guest lineup. Make sure you don't have to have the most expensive equipment, but have the proper equipment, have the proper setup. You want to be able to look good and sound good while you're on this medium because that's what's going to help to get other people. If you have crappy equipment, bad lighting, people are not really going to tune in. And then also have great content. Great content. That's what I would say. But uh, believe in yourself and just do it. Just do it. A lot of people say, "Oh, I have to plan. I'll start at 6 months from now." No, just do it, and you'll learn as you go along. I honestly, I decided that I was going to. I left one of the organizations and one of the places I was working back in September to say I was going to just do it all on my own, move away from everybody else, and I started this in October. So there literally was like maybe 2 weeks downtime for me before I started doing this. And how it came about was I was speaking to someone that I know on social media, and I said, you know what? I've had this idea for this show, and I would love to have you on. And he was my first guest, and that's how I got
Wow.
started.
Wow.
And now
Wow.
it's just kind of it slowly just keeps building into something that's bigger, and it's to a point now where you know I've got to a point where I didn't even see the stuff that I'm doing now. I've got some amazing people coming up, some people I can't even talk about right now. Just know that March is going to be a big month. I've got some super guests coming in March, and I'm actually working on getting on some big other names as well for later in the year. So uh, stay tuned.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And yeah, Chris, me and Chris so happened he started on Fly Ageless, and that's where I met Chris, just going out on Fly Ageless and everything. And I'm extremely glad I caught him, during that time when he was on there promoting, because if you wouldn't have been promoting, I probably would have never followed you. And that's, like I tell everybody, every show that I have, I'm huge on divine connections. And when you meet people, you never know who they are in your life. So handle them with care and grace and love. Because, like I said, you don't know how they're gonna bless you in the future. And hey, that one little connection on Fly Ageless ended up me being on Chris's show, and then Chris now on my show. And then
Absolutely.
another thing, like Chris said, just go for it. I'm like Chris. I ended one podcast with some buddies in June. Did not know that I was going to be doing Dope Ass Dude. It came to me in August. It came to me in July and I launched it in August. So just go for it. Don't give yourself time to talk yourself out of it or other people to talk you out of it. But just go for what you want. And then if you're not following us on TikTok, make sure you go follow the podcast on TikTok and Instagram, the Dope Ass Dude Podcast. And as you can see, Chris's name scrolling across the bottom of the screen, constantly underscore changing for me. Check him out this Friday on his show. He'll be there live. Go ask him a couple of questions and everything. And then you can also listen to the Dope Ass Dude on the go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So make sure you go out and look for me there. And this has been an amazing night. Chris, thank you so much for coming on here, dude.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And guys, we will see you guys next Monday. Peace. Chris.